Welcome to Nomad Media, Automotive Tales, where we tell vehicle stories, a little bit of history, and some unique and personal experiences. Let's get right into it. Welcome back, and today we have Tom Ayres and his 1972 Dodge Charger Special Edition. 400 Magnum on top of that, you know, man. I met you a while back at the Hartsville Cruise-In, and I got to talking to you about this car. So, as you know, and as everybody else out there knows, and they knew it was going to come up at least once, especially in a video with another Charger, I've got a Charger.
Right.
And mine is also F8 green. That's what brought my attention to yours, and I was like, hey, I need to talk to this guy and see about it. And just so happened you're willing to sit down with me and talk about your car story. I know you've owned it for a long time. I know that I think you and your wife met.
Correct.
While you had this car.
Correct.
And I want to hear that story, man, as long as you're willing to tell it. And I think you got some more to tell us about it too.
That's correct.
So I'm going to hand it right on over to you. Let's get right into it.
All right. Well, thank you for the opportunity. I was going to give you a little bit of background first to try to explain how I got to this point where I'm car crazy.
Well, I think we all are.
Yeah. My dad had a service station in the late 50s, early 60s, and as part of that service station, he also sold parts. So I was running around this station with a little 5-year-old with an oil rag in my back pocket, you know, so I was going to be a windshield washer man whenever I grew up. But anyway, that's how I got motor oil injected into my veins at an early age.
Oh, yeah.
And so as the years passed, I, like every young boy, I'd built model cars, and every dime that I saved, I would spend on my model cars, and I had a collection of model cars. So,
well, on that model car collection here, what was your favorite one you had?
I guess at that time, a '69 Camaro, because I kept changing it. You know, I'd do different things. I'd paint it a different color and put different stripes on it, you know, because that was everybody loves '69 Camaros, right?
Oh yeah, a lot of people do.
So anyway,
let's get those crazy Mopar guys, like the over-the-top Mopar guys, and then it's like, oh, no.
Well, I got an appreciation for all cars. You know, I like the '60s and '70s cars. They're just, to me, that's when I grew up. That's what I grew up around, and I just love them.
Me and you think a lot alike. I like all makes and models myself, like. And it's not just American made either. It's Japanese cars. The only thing I can think of that's really off my plate is let's keep the Fords out. I'm just playing Ford, guys. Calm down. Well, sorry, I didn't mean to disrupt
that's no problem. So, you know, we were building model cars and watching Roadrunner cartoons, and you know, it just building our engineering knowledge, you know.
Oh yeah, with the Acme engineering.
Wile E. Code is super genius, right?
Oh, yeah. The one guy to survive putting a firecracker on his back to shoot him, or a rocket.
Skates,
Yep.
Yeah. So, you know, after those years, of course, I was starting to look at cars to drive, something to drive, and being raised on a farm, we had an old farm truck, and I was to the point where I was going to be needing a vehicle to go to work because I had got a job for the summer. So I was looking for a car, and I couldn't come up with anything. One of my buddies had a '69 Roadrunner that he was going to sell, and he told me he'd sell it to me, and so I was going to go buy it, but he backed out, which, you know, that sort of bummed me out. But my dad said, well, would you be interested in taking this old truck? Well, he'd been driving this truck, and it had well over 100,000 miles on it. And it got to the point where it wore some cam lobes down. So it was running on about 6 cylinders. But it was a vehicle, and so I was more than happy to jump on that. So yeah, I'll take this. So I ended up that first summer just building a motor in it and got it running. And then the next summer I tore the transmission out of it. It's a 3-speed manual on the column.
Oh yeah.
So I was going from first to second gear, and I jammed it, you know, and hung second gear and broke the teeth on the second gear. So
Ooh.
that was the end of that transmission. So
I think I've mentioned before. It's like the column shifter manuals. That's one thing that's like you're gonna make me envious, man, because it's like that's I know how to drive manual. I love driving manual. I wish I had one right now, but well, technically I do, I guess, but I
yeah,
have the record. But
yeah.
the I've never driven one on the column, and it's something that's like a bucket list item for me at this point. It's like I got at some point in my life to get in a car with a column shift and drive it around.
Right.
Like it's on my bucket
Right.
list. Seems like such a small thing, but it's one of those things. It's like it
They
drives me
disappeared.
crazy.
Yeah.
It drives me crazy
Yeah.
because they're so hard to find, especially someone that's willing to be like, sure, I'll let you get in my
Right.
really old car that I don't know you and drive it around.
Right. Right. Well, anyway, so the next summer I ended up putting a 4-speed in it, and
Floor or on column?
it was on the floor.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you changed it up a lot then.
Yeah. Yeah. We changed it. I changed it up quite a bit. That was my custom. I was using my model skills now to on the real life car.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I went off to college, my first year as a freshman, we weren't allowed to carry our vehicles on campus.
Mm-hmm.
So the second year I showed up, I was able to carry my truck down there, and I had made friends with another student who had a 72 Roadrunner with the GTX option.
Ooh,
Yeah,
boy.
and it was at, I can't remember if it was a track pack car or a super track pack, but it was a 4-speed Dana car with disc brakes, 440, B5 blue, black interior,
Mm-hmm.
white laser stripe. I mean, it was a looker.
Oh yeah. That's
Yeah.
a beautiful car right there, and
Yeah.
it's almost the same as this.
Yeah,
Almost.
it's got a similar interior to it. Yes.
Very close.
Yeah. So anyway, we became friends. He liked my truck and I liked his car, and so we'd swap out quite a bit, and that's what got me hooked on the B body style. So the truck it eventually just got wrecked basically and totaled out, and so I had to go back to work to pick up some more money, because I did basically my own co-op type program. I'd work for a while and then go to school for a while and then work for a while and go to school for a while.
Right.
So it was time for me to go back to work, and so I worked and put some money together and was getting ready to go back to school. And I was driving a 70 model Sport Fury at that time, back and forth to work. It was a 4-door,
Uh-huh.
and it
Still
was,
a nice car.
well, this one, it had been beat. Every corner on it was beat. But it was good. It was a good work car. It was a 318 automatic, and it was just good on gas and good to go to work on.
Okay.
And so anyway, I didn't want to take it to campus because it was just a beater. So I started looking for a B body. I was looking for a 72 Roadrunner, 4-speed B block.
You wanted one like your buddy had.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So we didn't really have a very good way of locating cars at that time. We didn't have the internet, and I think we had a car trader. It was a Trader Post, I believe. And then of course we were using the local newspapers, the classified ads, going through them, and then word of mouth. And
Good old word of mouth.
yeah, and back during that time frame, this was in '78, and the oil embargo happened in '73, and so
Okay.
it was still a problem. People really didn't want these gas guzzlers because they remembered the oil embargo and the problems they had with all the gas crunch.
Do you happen to recall what did gas jump up to during that point? Like what was a lot back then for a gallon of gas?
Well, I can remember buying it for like 32 cents a gallon.
And that was a lot?
Well, that was the going rate at that time. Yeah.
Because see, I see pictures from time to time pop up on Facebook, social media, internet.
Yeah.
And I see the 15 to 20 cent range on it. I'm like, was that low back then? Obviously it's low compared to today, but like,
Right.
I'm like, was that low or was that like high? Because like I'm like, where's that range? Like so, like that's where that's all I'm really getting at. Like what is that? What was high during gas embargo when you were looking for this car?
That's a good question. But I remember I was thinking it's probably, I'm not sure what the price was on that in that range
Well, don't
at
worry,
that time.
don't worry about it too much. It's just
I
one of those
remember
curious
the biggest
things.
problem was just finding it.
Oh, so
It
it was just
wasn't really
shortages
it
then.
wasn't really you were sitting in line and you had rations. So you were trying to just find the gas. It wasn't,
Oh, okay.
it was a problem paying for it, but finding it was a bigger problem.
Okay. So see, that's a little bit there that I obviously I never experienced it, but like that's one of those questions. Is like I'm always like, wow, what was that like?
Yeah.
But I can't imagine not having gas. I mean, I guess if I lived in California, maybe.
Yeah.
Like not to go too off road there. Sorry, but
Well, if you remember, you probably remember back when we were having the hurricanes coming through and people were worried about getting gas and they were filling up their cars. And this was probably what been in the 2000 somewhere in there.
yeah,
And they actually,
talking about like Ivan and
yeah,
stuff, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
people were worried and they would go fill up all their cars and they were causing a shortage because of the panic there.
Yeah.
The gas stations were running out and they couldn't fill them up. The tankers couldn't get there fast enough to
I
fill
think
them up.
we recently had something like that too, actually. So
Yeah.
where everybody was panic buying toilet paper
Yeah,
and
right, right.
other things.
Right. So it was something similar to that.
Okay, so that's a
You
good.
know,
Okay,
but they were actually rationing it. You had certain, I think it was
like coupon type stuff.
certain
rations?
days of the week you could go get your gas, whatever. But anyway, we also, the times were a lot slower then too, and the gas stations were set up where you could either fill up or you could have an attendant fill you up. And so I'd made friends with a local Shell station owner, and he'd moved back from Detroit, and when he came back from Detroit, he brought a drag car with him.
Ooh.
And so he'd pull this drag car out every day. It was at it. He would. He had a corner that he'd pull it out at his station and park it. And so when I was going to school, I'd be riding the bus, of course. We'd drive right past it, so I get to drool all over this car every time. Well, he eventually sold the station, but he actually had a house that was on the road that I traveled going back and forth to work from my parents' house. So I stopped every now and then, talked to him, and just because we were still friends and just chit-chatting. And so I stopped one day, and I told him, I said, I was getting ready to go back to school, and I needed to get rid of that Sport Fury I was driving, and I was going to buy. I was looking for a B-body, a Charger, a Roadrunner, or something with a big block 4-speed. He said, "Well, I'll sell you that old drag car." I said, "You still got it?" He said, "Yeah."
Wait, is this it?
No.
I was about to say, like, whoa, man, like, hold up,
No.
you didn't tell me this in advance, like.
No. But this is sort of the word of mouth type, how you do your trading around and everything. But
Yeah.
anyway, he said, I'll sell you that old drag car. Well, the old drag car was a '69 COPO Camaro.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it had like 20,000 miles on it the hard way, but it still had slicks on the back and headers had rusted through it. And it was in a old smokehouse, so it had dirt floor, and the car, I mean, it just had stone chips on the quarter panels from the slicks where it's picked up
Yeah,
rocks.
picking up rocks and stuff.
Yeah, but he said I'll sell you that COPO, and he had a nice tandem axle trailer too to go with it, $3,000.
Oh, man. I bet you kind of kick yourself these days
Well,
thinking on it.
at the time, I told him, I said, well, I really like the car, but I can only spend like $2,500 or so in it, $2,000, $2,500. And the reason,
Which that's a lot of money back when you're talking here, right? Like,
Yeah.
roughly what year?
This was 78.
78? So, yeah, that was a lot of money back then.
Yeah.
Like, that was a lot of money back then.
Yeah. Well, it was all I wanted to spend at the time. But of course,
3,000 is like a new car.
I didn't think about, well, I could sell this trailer for $600 or so, and then I'll be in the price range.
Yeah.
Well, it's probably a blessing I didn't get it, because I may not be sitting here today. But anyway, that just gives you an idea about these cars. They weren't really popular, and people weren't really looking for them at that time. They were looking for basic transportation. So it was a little difficult finding this car, and like I say, I did find it through Trader Post, I'm pretty sure, and it was in Nashville, and it was I'm the third owner of it. It was, the story I got from the person I bought it from was a gentleman who had a son that was in medical school, had just graduated, and he ordered the car for him, and then when he went on to medical school, the car just sat in the parking lot.
Rotting away.
Yeah.
Has to be driven.
Yeah, he didn't, he was just busy with medical school. And so, I
Now,
guess,
thinking about that, like you say that, like if it was just sitting in a parking lot, like that may not seem like a lot of information or something there, like to some people, and I'm really talking to anyone that may be watching here, but like, back during that time, those years, like people understood cars better. Like they understood the mechanical workings of them, whether you're a car guy or not. Nowadays, it's like it's taken for granted because not many people at all really know what's going on under their hoods. But I feel like back in that time, based on the stuff that I hear, of course, you can probably correct me on this if I'm wrong, but like a lot of people understood better, like, hey, we got to drive our cars or they're going to kind of rot, and they're not going to be good, usable vehicles anymore for what the purpose is. So,
well, that is true, but this was like a daily driver, so it got drove daily.
okay, well,
Yeah.
excuse me.
Yeah. He had, I guess there was about 60,000 miles on it, 60-something thousand miles on it when I bought it. The gentleman I bought it from was, he just couldn't afford the gas in it. It's just, and he's a young family man too. He just had a small child. So it was hard for them to get in and out with the car seat and all that stuff. So he was ready to move on. So I was lucky enough to be able to purchase it from him. And like I say, I'm a third owner on it. But it did have a lot of the stuff I was looking for. It is a big block. It is a factory 4-speed, pistol grip shifters, console. It's got the 150 mile an hour speedometer. It's got tack and gauges and all the good stuff on it. But as a bonus, it did have air on it too.
Is that what the special edition is for?
Yeah, I think so.
I hope I'm not like jumping up forward
Well,
on you, but
the
I was like,
special edition, the option was you got the hideaway headlights.
okay.
You got, let's see, what else was special on this one?
AC,
Yeah.
hideaway headlights.
Yeah, power steering, power brakes, AM, FMs.
Really, that's
stereo.
that's probably it. Because back in the day, like I didn't even know on my car, mine's an AC car, and that AC unit, it changes the price on my car drastically based on like on a book value. All right, which tends not to be right anyways, but based on a book value, you add AC to my car, it adds like 10 grand to the book value price.
Oh, yeah,
So it's
yeah.
like that might actually be it, the power options, and the AC.
Right.
Sorry, I didn't mean to derail there. I was just I was
that's
very
okay.
curious, like, what's
Yeah.
the special edition here? Like,
Yeah. So anyway, I did purchase it and ended up becoming my daily driver. I drove it to college. It's been in the college parking lots. It's been in coal-fired power plant parking lots. I mean, so it's been well used.
Yeah,
But this is the original paint here.
that's impressive.
The trunk deck is original paint. The hood, that's a long story there. That's actually off a 71 Super B. And we'd painted it to match this car. And it originally came with a flat hood.
Yep.
So we've got the flat hood for it. But
You
I
know-
wanted to jazz it up a little bit, so I put the Super B hood on it.
It looks great. I think I like this hood better.
Yeah.
Just personally, I like that hood
Yeah,
better.
it goes good with the black vinyl top and
It definitely does with that
the little blackout area.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, with it being the daily driver, of course, we got into some winter driving. And I guess the most hair-raising experience on the winter driving that I've ever had with it was I, my parents lived on a country road, and I was on the way to town, and we'd had some snow and ice, bad snow and ice.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a big hill that you had to climb, but the hill was actually banked with a curve in it too. And the curve, the way it was banked is perfect for dry weather, but it's terrible for snow and ice because it was banked where you would slide into a ditch if you were lose traction.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what happened. I was going up
Oh,
this
man.
hill, and I didn't get enough speed up to start with. And I got about halfway up it, and I lost traction, and the back end started coming around. And the more I would try to ease up, the more it slid toward the ditch.
Mm-hmm. Oh, goodness.
So I said, this ain't gonna work like this. So I was sitting there trying to figure out what I needed to do, and I could see another car coming up behind me. So okay, and it was a deputy. I thought, okay, well maybe I can get some help here. Maybe I can get somebody to help hold the back end, and I can ease on out.
Yeah.
Well, he got over in the opposite lane and got on the shoulder where he had a little more traction over there.
Mm-hmm.
And there he goes. He went on over the hill.
Oh, Lord.
So
Oh,
there
Lord.
went my help. So yeah, I'm on my own here.
Oh, goodness.
So I thought, well, I'm not going to make it doing it like I'm doing right now. So I'm just going to back down this hill.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I had enough room I could cut the wheels and head back down the hill. Well, I wasn't thinking at the time. I was just doing my normal thing. I clutched it. So when I pushed in the clutch, I instantly realized that wasn't a good idea because now I don't know how this thing's going to react when I put my brakes on.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm afraid to put brakes on because I'm too close to these ditches here.
Mm-hmm.
And I could just spin right around and end up in a ditch.
Mm-hmm.
And with this being my daily driver, I don't want to be without a car,
Right.
I don't have collision on this thing.
Oh, goodness.
So anyway, all that was running through my mind. So I was gaining speed, and I didn't want to hit the brakes, and I just thought, man, I sure hope nobody's coming. Of course, it feels like you're doing 100 miles an hour, but I was probably doing maybe 50, 55, something like that. But it's still pretty quick going backwards down a hill,
Oh, yeah. When you're nervous, you're nervous. When you're in a nervous spot like that, it's nerve wracking.
Yeah.
And especially on ice and snow.
Yeah.
Like I've only been in that situation once or twice or three times. I've been in it a few times actually. Now that I think about it, but it's one of those things. Is like maybe not so much here in Alabama, because we don't get that much snow, but. I've lived in Indiana as well, and I like to go snowboarding personally.
Right.
I've dealt with this a little bit in those situations, and especially when I was in Indiana, I had to learn how to drive in the snow. It's one of those things, like now you're going in reverse, so you've already got an extra layer here that I don't have when I'm explaining this. But I'm always thinking to myself, I'm like, as long as this person in front of me does not stop.
Yeah, don't do anything quick.
Yeah, keep moving, don't stop. Keep your momentum going forward, or at least in the direction you want it to go in.
Right.
And if you start spinning, well, you're pretty much done at that point. But, just keep your momentum going and you're all right. But you're going in reverse here. So, like, oh, God.
Yeah. Well, eventually it slowed down enough that I could start applying the brakes, and I did get to a flat spot where I could get a running start. And that's what I did like the deputy did. I went
over the hill.
Yeah, over the hill in the opposite lane. Hopefully nobody was coming, and I got enough speed that I could make it over it then. But yeah, that was a tight one there. And then from there, let's see. I guess back at school, I eventually met my wife, and the story behind that was. There was an apartment complex that she was living in, and I was going to rent the apartment next door.
Mm-hmm.
So she was in her apartment. She told me later she was in her apartment and she heard this rumbling sound. It was a charger, and she said that she heard that and saw the Charger. Her being a car girl also, she said, "I'm gonna go for a ride in that car."
Love at first sight.
Yeah,
Love
yeah,
at first sight.
yeah. So we ended up dating in this thing, and we got married, and we ended up taking our oldest daughter home from the hospital in it, and we did some traveling in it with the babies. And whenever we'd just go out on trips, of course, we had to have the car seat for my oldest daughter. And whenever we'd stop, I'd just get her out of the car seat and just let her stand in my driver's seat there, and she'd grab hold of the steering wheel and grab hold of the shifter, the pistol grip, and she'd be shifting and steering the car. So I guess I'm on in the future, she'll be the next caretaker of it, because she's got some memories in it now too.
Well, you're not gonna make your son mad, are you, with saying that right now?
No. He's already claimed some other vehicles in there, so.
Which I'm definitely gonna get back with you on some of them, hopefully sometime soon. So stay tuned.
Yeah.
But I'm sure they've got some stories with them too.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, every car's got a story, right?
Oh yeah.
And it's a good thing these cars can't talk, because the stories they could tell would really be.
Well, you
would
met your
really
wife
be a
in this one,
problem.
so I'm going to use my imagination on that one and leave it there.
Yeah, it would be a problem. But let's see, some of the modifications that we've done to this over the years, I've I think it had about 140,000 miles on it in '84. And I decided I was going to rebuild the motor, because I was looking at buying another car. And the new cars that were out there just didn't interest me at all. And having this big block 4-speed, I thought, man, I'd rather just drive this, keep driving this. So I pulled the motor and rebuilt the motor, had a machine shop do all the balancing for me and boring, and then I put the motor together. But one of the things that I ran into at the machine shop, the guy said, well, I wish you brought the camshaft with you too, because one of the cam bearings bores is off center a little bit. And they said that that's pretty common with the Chrysler products. He said, just go ahead and take a machinist scale, and where you got a tight spot, go ahead and just scrape that cam bearing, and you'll get till you get the camshaft in. We ran into a problem with the camshaft bearings on this one. One of the bores for the cam bearing in the block is off center, just a thousandth or so, but it was just enough to mess up the alignment of the camshaft where you couldn't get it in. So he said, take your machinist scale and find out where your tight spot is, and you just scrape a little of the babbitt off your cam bearings. Well, I got a little carried away and probably scraped a little bit more than I should have scraped.
Oh man.
So when I put it together and fired it off, my oil pressure wasn't exactly where I wanted it to be. So I ran it like that for several years, and then the valve springs needed to be replaced too. They were weak. The last time I had the heads off and had them valves ground. They ended up having to shim the valve springs to get the right tension on them.
That's one thing I actually tell people there. I'm like, I'm not a professional engine builder by any means. Like, hardly know what I'm doing. I can read a manual. But it's like, I actually tell people every time, I'm like, one thing that I would always make sure that I do is replace my springs.
Yeah, that's
always,
a good idea.
Always replace your springs.
And match them to the tension that you need for the camshaft that you got too.
Yep, I'm like, always replace the springs is one thing that I always say, even with my limited knowledge on rebuilding an engine, because I'm like, if you don't, I know that that's how you get bent valves.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't want to have to deal with that personally. So.
Yeah. So there were several things when I put the motor together that, I really should have done differently at that time, but I didn't. So fast forward several years, probably about maybe 6 years ago, something like that. I saw where a gentleman was going to come out with a 5-speed overdrive transmission for these cars for Mopars, that was going to be a true bolt-in transmission where you didn't have to do any modifications.
Mm-hmm.
With this being a factory 4-speed car, I didn't want to do anything that was couldn't be reversed.
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew if it was a true bolt-in, then I could just take my transmission out, which is a matching numbers transmission. And if somebody decided later on, after I'm gone, that they want the original drivetrain back in, you know, it could go back in, or, you know, they could put it back the way it was.
Yeah.
And so during that time period, while I was waiting for the transmission, I took the motor back out. So I had a set of 915 heads that I had, which are the closed chambered big valve heads that were only in 1967.
Right.
So I thought, well, I'm just going to use these are spare heads, so I'm just going to use these, build these heads and put them on it, and I'm going to keep my original heads. If, like I say, if everybody wants to put them back the way it was, they can put it back the way it was.
Yep.
So it had, when I built it the first time, it had I put a Comp 280 Magnum series cam in it,
Mm-hmm.
and the cam was still good, so I just reused it. But I put the Mancini Racing roller rockers on it,
Mm-hmm.
and I put the Mancini Racing stainless steel valves in it, and I put Comp Cam valve springs in it, and I changed the cam bearings.
You finally fixed it.
Yeah, and fixed that issue. And then I went ahead and put a new exhaust system on it. And while I was at it, where I could get to it, I thought, well, if this thing's capable of high-speed driving, I need to tighten up this front end a little bit better too.
Mm-hmm.
So while I've got the engine bay opened up, I rebuilt the front end too.
Mm-hmm.
And I put Hotchkiss torsion bars on it and shocks on it, and I put a firm feel, cop feel steering gear box on it,
Mm-hmm.
and put all Moog front end parts under it, ball joints and tie rod ends and bushings. And
Just recently did that to mine, so
Yeah.
yep, I know exactly
all
what
the
you're
good
talking.
stuff, yeah.
Oh yeah.
So it's been tightened up. But as far as the transmission, it was a true bolt-in. I didn't have to do anything to the drive shaft, nothing to the transmission tunnel, nothing to the transmission mounts, cross member.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got the factory. It's got the original shifter handle still back on it. So it does have a Hurst linkage and all on it still too.
What I like to say is, at this point, you're cooking with bacon grease, man. Like you got a hot car here.
Yeah. Well, it was rated at 265 from the
Mhm.
factory whenever it was made
Mhm.
in '72, and it's nothing to compare to the modern cars by any means. Nothing.
No,
But-
I don't think
but
any
it
of the old
will-
cars really are.
Yeah, you can merge on the interstates.
Yeah. I made a joke with a buddy of mine here a while back. This would have been October last year, headed to the Talladega show, actually. And the joke I made with him was, because we were pulling up behind a Chevelle that was headed to the show as well. And I'm like, well, the guy was blowing out coolant. And I wanted to make sure he knew, in case I didn't want something bad to happen to his car.
Right.
So I pull up next to him, we're in the Charger, you know, I'm like, hey, you're leaking coolant, you know, just yell at him across the interstate, you know, and he could hear me. And he's like, hey, cool, thanks, you know, thumbs up. And as he was like, okay, kind of waved me on, so I just went on instead of stopping and helping him or anything like that. He just waved me on, so I head on to the show. Well, as soon as we go past him and everything, my buddy says, man, I bet you everybody on the road right now is thinking y'all are about to drag race. And I was like, I looked at him and I said, man, you do understand the minivan behind us could pass us without even blinking, right? I mean, we'll look cool as crap racing each other, but the minivan behind us has more horsepower than both of these cars do, probably combined.
Yeah. But it's a different experience, like we talked before. You know, it's totally different. So you know, you just gotta love it.
These are fun.
Yeah.
These are fun, man.
And like you said, it's a lot simpler. I've got, in all my travels in it, I've had several times I had to break down, but I always carry my tools with me.
Yep.
And there was one trip in particular that sticks in my mind. I was on my way back to college, and my alternator went out. The bearing went out on it.
Oh,
Of course,
man.
she was squealing like stuck pig, you know.
Yeah.
And so I was on the interstate, and I just happened to be close to an exit, and so I just got off the interstate and went to a local parts store.
Yeah.
And luckily they had a machine shop in the back. So I was coming back from and at that time, Coors east of the Mississippi was illegal.
Okay.
So nobody had any Coors over here. And I'd been
The
to,
Deer Smoking the Bandit times.
yeah, I'd been to Kentucky, and so I had some Coors I was bringing back with me. And it was in the trunk, and I only had $5 to my name because everybody paid by checks.
Yep.
And I'd filled up and paid by check, and I only had $5 cash.
Yeah.
Well, here I am at this parts store with no, with a bad alternator, and I knew I wasn't going to be able to buy an alternator, so I asked him about bearings for it. He said, "Yeah, we got bearings for it." So he gave me the inner and outer bearing for the alternator, and so I went outside and took it apart. And the front bearing, you have to have a press to press it on and off. So I thought, well,
You're still kind of dead in the water.
yeah, sort of hurting here, but the bearings were like $4.95, so
You had no cash either.
I had like a nickel to my name now. So I went into the machine shop there, and I talked to the guys. I said, "Hey, can I borrow your press for a minute? Just push this bearing off and put a new one on." They said, "Yeah, but if you break it, it's yours, you know. We're not taking any responsibility." I said, "I understand that, you know." So I did, and everything came out fine. I put it back together and cranked it up. Everything's working good. And so I got a 6-pack out of my stash and walked back in and said, "Hey, you guys like Coors?" And they said, "Oh yeah, man." So little barter in there, and we back on the road again and gone again. So yeah, they're a lot simpler to keep up with, and it'd be a challenge to try to do that with today's cars.
Oh yeah. Dude, man, I'm loving these stories, but how about we get into hearing this thing run?
Sure. Yeah, no problem.
And there you have it. That's Tom Ayres in his 1972 Dodge Charger Special Edition 400 Magnum.
400 Magnum.
We've been talking about this for a few minutes now, and
Yeah.
I messed it up. But and the guard cat.
That's guard
of course.
cat, yep.
But man, thanks for taking some time. I love how you actually met your wife in this car. Like that's something like that story just gets me. Like that one gets me. The cop car story, that's hilarious. Just left you there. Like,
Yeah, you're on your own, buddy.
But it's like, that's hilarious. But I have to say, my favorite one has to be that you met your wife in this car, and you still have it, and you're going to have it forever. So it's like, thanks for taking the time to tell me that. Is there anything you might like to tell anyone that may be watching?
Well, I'm not going to be here forever, and I'm going to be passing it on. So I'm trying to build some memories with my grandkids right now. I'm planning on turning the car over to my oldest daughter, who has a son who's already expressed an interest in it. He's fascinated with the hideaway headlights. He, look, Mama, look at the headlights. Look at the headlights. So, but I've been trying to, you know, do things with him, like take him to school on Fridays in the car, and trying to build some memories there. So, in the future, maybe he'll maybe he'll be able to have the love and take care of it like what I was able to do. So that's pretty much it.
Man, well, thanks for talking to me today. I want to shake your hand.
Yeah.
I greatly appreciate it.
I
But
enjoyed
with
it.
that, we'll see you in the next one before Guard Cat knocks down you guys watching. So peace out.
I'll see you at the next car show, okay?
And there you have it, folks. Be sure you like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.